Evil Spirit drum to go ahead and to do an honor song as we move all of our chairs where we're going to make a large circle to begin this portion of our forgiveness and healing ceremony. I'd like to ask those Anishinaabe Quest singers to come forward, and I'd like to ask Elder Daisy Costas from Cree First Nations to go ahead and share experience, strength, and hope. Elder Daisy Costas.
Ani bonjour, Wanchie. Nagstanga de Jean into the Morgan Church, Gaitaya, Kaishin Kadej Gauher, I know Chagay, Kaustado Gaviashi. Sugar to want to Jimmy Quick, did you have type? Did you want to see it? Did you want type in there? I must go see what the Kaishin Kadej. I just spoke in my language, and I'm going to introduce myself in my language also. Unable to wapagani kwetes in kas waswana pido jaba makwa to them. I was raised way up in northern Quebec in the James Bay area, and also I was raised in the boarding school era also too. And my experience in the bush was the most beautiful part of my life. I have never forgotten. I was raised there with my parents. They were trappers, and we lived and moved around in the bush and trapped beaver, rabbits, and many other animals, and we hunted moose and caribou and elk. Those are the animals that we depended on, to survive on. I just recently got back a week ago or so to visit my family. One of my brothers is still missing up in that area, and we don't know what happened to him. And he was also a boarding school survivor, and he had problems with alcohol due to the excessive alcohol, and also he was sexually abused while in boarding school. The same boarding school that I went to in Ontario, and it's called Chinook Indian Residential School. And I was there for 13 years, and many times while I was there, I still spoke my language, and I still speak it. But to this day, I haven't taught my children to speak that language because I was told not to speak it, that language was a bad language, and that I should not be speaking it. Because I was a little bit older, being sent away to boarding school, I always thought of the language first, and because I was 8 years old when I went away to boarding school. So I was already kind of in tune with, with the culture and also the language, and learned all the ways of living in the bush and being raised in the bush. And one of my friends, Kyle Frampton, was one of my friends that came with me, and she just loved back there in that bush life. We got to do a lot of the stuff that I used to do as a child with my parents. We walked in the bush, and picked rocks, and we also went out with my brother, Robert. We went out and set nets out there and caught many fish, whitefish, walleye, and northern pike, and also sturgeon. And Kyle had never in her life had seen a sturgeon. And of course, she was afraid of it because it looks kind of weird. And but my brother helped her along, to kind of give her that, that experience of being able to take a sturgeon out of a net. And it's very tricky, how that's done. And she managed to do it, and I was just so proud of her, And she really thoroughly enjoyed her trip up there, and so did I. and I wish, I was back there again. But anyway, with my experience with boarding school, it was good and it was bad, because of the excessive punishments, that I received as a boarding school, because I was very outspoken and I would not let anybody hurt me in any way. And I still spoke the language, no matter what they did to me. And I would get strapped with, with that leather strap many times. And a couple of times I ran away, but they managed to catch me and bring me back. And, I would run over to the closest reservation that I could get to, and that was the Garden River Reservation, because I had many friends from that reservation. And these were the Ojibwe, girls that I knew from that school. And they helped me out a lot. The parents helped me out a lot on that reservation also. And they told me, Daisy, you'll have to go back. And I say, no, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here with you, I would tell them. And, but then they would have to turn me in, because they would be in trouble too also if they didn't turn me in. So those are the things that I went through. But my brother, on the other hand, he's gone now, never really had closure with the problems that he went through, because he had problems with alcohol. And that's because caused from the excessive punishment that he received while at that boarding school, that we were at. And then also, he was sexually abused. He never told his mom or his dad or the rest of his sisters, like myself, that happened to him. But I knew that something had happened to him while we were at the boarding school, because he would, if he saw me, he would come running to me and hug me and tell me that, that he was hurt. And he didn't tell me how he was hurt. And I thought maybe he had been strapped for something, for doing something wrong or whatever, or maybe talking back to one of his subordinates or whatever. And I never knew until maybe a couple years ago when he told one of my brothers that he was sexually abused while he was at that boarding school. And I kind of, in a way, blamed myself, because I was never able to get to him, because they would not allow us to go to our brothers or sisters in any way. If they were hurt in any way, they would not allow us to go to embrace them, to hug them, and tell them how much we love them. It was just one of those things that they really suppressed on us, not to show any kind of love to each other. That's one of the things that I really miss now. That when I was raising my children, I try to do it now, because I was not able to tell them as much as I used to tell them how much I love them in the language. But now I tell them how much I love them in the language now, and I talk to them in the language. And I'm trying to teach them now how to speak the language, because we're going through this process of healing now. And part of my healing is singing with my sisters here, with, the Wabanesi Snowbird Singers. And that's part of my healing, to heal what I experienced in the boarding school. My two sisters and one of my brothers were the only ones that they were too old to go to boarding school. And so they kind of envied us when we went away to go to boarding school, but in a way now they don't envy us now what we're going through. And they're trying to help us now to get back to reality, to get back to our culture and teach us and keep speaking the language to our children and our grandchildren. And it's just been a real good thing for us to be able to do that. And I say Chimigwech for this. Our next song is going to be it's going to be the Strong Woman song. and